legislation buried for the cost of billion-dollar backroom deals that profit from our loss. What good is tomorrow if born to die in waste? Is trust just an illusion? Is a promise a mistake? And as sure as the sun shines, as sure as the grass grows and the rivers flow, I'll be there beside you, pulsing through your veins. You'll feel my heart, you know. Time has come to recognize deceptions of the past, seek truth and stand together at last. Sure as the sun, sure as the trees, and the rivers flow free, I'll be there, I'll be there, you can count on me. I'll be with you when we stand together at last. As sure as the sun shines, as sure as...
Well, good evening. Thanks, Phyllis Sinclair. Love that song. Howdy, everybody listening in, and gonna do a show tonight about some of the peoples that populated the Americas, and starting off with an adventure story and the Kon-Tiki. Back in 1947, Thor Heyerdahl, he constructed a raft, him and a few others, and floated across from Peru to the Polynesians. He had surmised that from legends there in Polynesia, he had spent time there, that the peoples actually came from the other way and not actually from Southeast Asia. So anyways, I'm going to talk some about the Chinese and other Asian cultures that came over to the Americas around the Japanese current, and just some other peoples that have kind of been anomalies here too. So, pyramids that have been built, stone chambers throughout the New England area and across the north. So, Mike's going to be calling in, and maybe, I hope Hawk got that one article on some roads that are seen from satellite imagery. Okay, so I'm going to start off. I'm going to read some here. It says, for those with a daring dream, sometimes their life dream, undreamt by many, thought impossible by others, and great reward often comes only with grave risk. Despite the danger and the doubt, a brave few move forward, undeterred, towards only that faint glimmer of success. And when the grave risk and the glimmer of success meet, legends are born. So this is a pretty interesting story. Following the Second World War, these guys really went on an adventure. Like, if you can't take the water to the horse and take the horse to water, this kind of flies in the face of what the then modern professionals had to say of the peoples and migrations. There's instances of a great many people that and other cultures that have come here, from Leif Erikson in 1000 AD. He came over in a clinker-built boat, the Viking boats, overlapping planks. About 35 men and women on board. It's about 50 foot long and could carry 20 tons. Traveling at 13 knots, following polar currents, it may take 250 days travel to Newfoundland, a Lost Meadows area there. Evidence is there was a Norse coin, a penny found, and also I think that was in Boston, and also some stones with Scandinavian script. It's been postulated that they're fraud, but there's also been other stones found, Kinsian stone in Minnesota, for instance, and others. The Welsh in 1170 from Maddox to Mobile, Alabama, also in probably the same type of ship, would have been a Viking-style ship. There's a Cherokee legend around Fort Mountain, Georgia, that Europeans built a site, and the Mandan tribe, and Caton, I think that was the other, this is a fellow named Caton, suggests was that a mix of native and locals. Similar languages were Welsh and Mandan have many similarities there. There's been a missionary in 500 AD from Ireland. 530 AD. St. Brendan the Navigator, and he is supposed to travel to Connecticut. There's stone chambers, like I was saying, throughout New England there, and this guy here, this site where I got this from, he postulates that this was evidence of St. Brendan the Navigator, inciting spring equinox that coincides with Easter and so forth, as these chambers would line up and show, hey Mike, got you coming in. Welcome, Mike. So anyways, these I think are a much older culture that was worldwide. I think that before our supposed modern history that there was a great amount of history that was made beforehand. Some people might call it ages. I know just JJ earlier, he called them ages, and citing mankind has been around for a great many years. Some artifacts was found also with a spear point in a mastodon associated with Europeans off the coast of Virginia, approximately 20,000 about 20,000 odd years before current era. Let's see. I think this one was found off pretty deep there. I think that the sea levels, because of ice and glaciers, would probably have dropped the sea level. I think it was about 450 feet, if I remember correctly. There's also been postulated that this is the mainstream accepted theory that Asians crossed the land bridge and to form the Clovis Society. These stone tools that have been found first to be associated with this would have been in Clovis, New Mexico, where they get the bet name Clovis. Okay, we covered that. Good. Hey, Mike, glad you called in. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. I'm just listening to you. You're giving a good rundown. Keep it up.
Right on. Let's see. I need to drop this guy down here. I want to talk here. There's some voyages of the pyramid builders, and this is from 21stcenturyradio.com articles. The cultures ranging across vast spaces in geology and time, such as the ancient Egyptians and early Buddhists, the Mayan and Inca, Toltec, and Aztec civilizations of the Americas, the Celts of the British Islands, and even the Mississippi Indians of pre-Columbus, Illinois, simply dreamed the same dreams and envisioned the same structures. Did they? I think the question's asked. Scientist and tenured university professor Robert M. Schutz, give me a shot, Mr. Schutz, one of the world's preeminent geologists in recasting the date the great speaks. Who shot his nose anyways? He believes otherwise, I wanted to say. And in this dramatic and meticulously reasoned book, he argues that primeval sailors traveled from the eastern continent, primarily Southeast Asia, and spread the idea of pyramids across the earth, involving the human species in a far greater degree of contact and exchange than experts have previously thought possible. Voyages of the pyramid builders and the true origins of the pyramids from lost Egypt to ancient America. That's Robert Schutz, and that's what he has to say. He goes on. I think he goes on to say that there's some alien involvement and stuff, but I don't think that we have to resort to aliens that. Or alien technology to have been able to build some of these structures, these pyramids and these great mounds, walls that have been found, like Rockwall, Texas, and other places all across different places in the world. So we have. This is a book. Now I think I know I gave it to my brother, and I'm not sure where it is. I think he's probably got it in a box, but. I had this, I'm pretty certain this one. I've been trying to find this information. But anyways, this is by Charles G. Leland in 1875, The Discovery of America by Chinese Buddhist Priests in the 5th century. And the one I was looking at about Fusang, was trying to find anyways, was also 2500 BC. They had expeditions that came over and explored and populated the North Americas. Whether any particular races came in and were either absorbed or maybe they just kind of died off or whatever, but there's probably a combination of races that make up the Americas, the indigenous people here, and I'd say that people from all over the world have probably been here. There's evidence for Africans and for some of these folks over there. I forget, over the Middle East, anyways, up there, ancient times. Also the Vikings, Europeans, the Asians, and so let's see. We start out one of the perennial pre-Columbian contact theories. Involves ancient visits by the Chinese to America. This is made possible for several reasons. First of all, the voyage around the Great Circle route across the Pacific is facilitated by almost constant visibility of land and prevailing sea currents. China had advanced maritime technology long before the European Age of Discovery, and historically were known to have taken long sea voyages to distant ports such as Africa, Arabia, and India, before Vasco da Gama set sail. And lastly, there are suggestive Chinese accounts of lands far to the east in their chronicles. This book, written in the 19th century by Charles Leland, examines these records and also reviews some of the evidence for such contacts. Excuse me just a sec. Okay. This has long remained a popular hypothesis to the current day. And so on here. I think that was all I was going to read out of that. Yeah. Okay. This is another site from Megalithia Mania America blogspot on mounds, megaliths, and giants of North America. I find that to be pretty incredulous. Some accounts of 50-foot giants. I can believe a 15-footer, 18-footer, I guess, but I don't know. How high do you, or how long is a Chinaman? So short's his cousin. Me how far? Hey, let me see if I can pull this right here. I'm gonna try some technology. I wanted to play this clip here, and I think I've got it set to go from YouTube. This is a part of it, and yes, we do. Okay, and off it goes.
As the scientific data I'd accumulated had convinced me that Indians from South America had settled in the islands of the Pacific, and bearing in mind the fact that their only seagoing vessels were balsa rafts, I came to the conclusion that these balsa rafts must possess characteristics of which, so far, we were unaware. The only way to test my theory was to build one of these rafts on the basis of the Spanish descriptions, launch it in the sea off the coast of Peru, and find out if wind and current would in fact waft us ashore. On April the 28th, 1947, the Pelicans, for the first time for hundreds of years, were startled at the sight of a balsa raft heading for the open sea. We were on our own, afloat on our 9 balsa wheels. After a month, the Kon-Tiki was way up, carried us north almost as far as the equator, after which we struck out straight across the Pacific. Ocean currents accounted for about 1/3 of our actual speed, and the rest was the gift of the trade wind. The elements were driving us relentlessly west at an average rate of 42.5 nautical miles a day, or about 80 kilometers. Our record for one single 24-hour stretch was 130 kilometers. After being at sea for
dead air. Yeah, it's dead air.
managed to
We ain't got
land us
nothing,
safe
Mike?
and sound through the breakers on the windward side of the reef.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that not coming through?
It is now.
Oh. Okay. Well, anyways, that was a part of a clip from Thor himself, and I'll finish off our story about the Kon-Tiki, or start it and finish. In the 1940s, Norwegian, that was about 47, Norwegian explorer Heyerdahl was consumed with the belief that the native population of Peru could have settled Polynesia. Contrary to the accepted theory of the period, he believed early Incan rafts were seaworthy, at least those depicted in Spanish conquistador diagrams. This conviction that the Incas and later populations had the means and skills necessary to make the trip led to a six-man expedition across the Pacific Ocean on a now iconic balsam raft called Kon-Tiki. And back in, I guess, was it 2006? I think it was his son, or maybe it was his grandson. They made the trip again, and actually, by what had been learned, they actually learned how to use these steering boards where they drop down between the slots of the raft itself, and with a sail combination, are able to steer this raft rather well, which Thor didn't have the benefit. All he did was built the raft and just tried it out as they went across, and so did the later expedition. But they, like I said, they had a little bit better knowledge to play off of, and did a fantastic job. They beat, I believe it was by 25 days, they beat the first expedition in time-wise by floating across. So popular scientific belief held that the balsam boats would absorb water and disintegrate without frequent trips ashore to dry out in the sun. Additionally, the reference drawings depicted raft-like vessels without lips or sides to hold against the heavy seas. How could such primitive designs and materials possibly broach such a distance? Certainly, any narrative Peruvian, I keep saying narrative, is native Peruvian who dared to voyage this met with watery doom. That was proven to be false. In the way they actually built these, they cut them up and floated them down in fresh water down the river, and that tempered these logs against invasion by sea worms, and also by having the resins impregnated into it instead of drying it and letting it. If you dried it and then put it in the water, it's going to just soak the water right up. It would indeed get waterlogged, but the method, the fresh cut method, is what they used, and that allowed them to traverse the sea. And these currents are continuous year-round. They're not just, they're a continual trade wind where they push from the South American continent across westerly all the way over into Polynesia, Fuji, and other places there. So yeah, Thor, he was unconvinced, and with a little help from the Peruvian government, crew members successfully built that raft to the specifications in those aged drawings and set out across the Pacific. There's I should grab the, if anybody want to watch that original, yeah, let me go pick that up. I have to scroll down to find it. This is it won an Academy Award for documentaries in 1951. Very, very awesome to watch. And here we go in English. Copy. This comes. I watched it on Netflix, but I did find this image or version, shall I say, in YouTube. So bug it up, pop it in, copy that, watch that later. They made a new movie about the Contiki crossing. It's came out last year, maybe 2012. Anyways, this original documentary far outweighs the new movie, I think. But they took a few liberties, of course, as they do in movies, but pretty much followed the same as the documentary. And also, let me get back over here. Let me get the follow-up, which is pretty awesome too. The Tangaroa expedition. I'll pop this up here just a sec. And that was, like I said, the son, I think, or grandson. Anyways, that was really awesome too. It's almost kind of Robinson Crusoe in a way. There's the second one. The movies, you can find that new movie on some sites too, but I like these a lot better, which is normally the case. So anyways, now let's see that, it flies in the face of, what's taught in school. It's mostly, it's all controlled, of course, by, where the history comes from. And it's, told by the conquerors. You've all heard that, of course. So anything that has been contrary has kind of been, swept under the carpet by academia. People are even ostracized for coming up with any kind of other, ideas of history. So all been controlled, and like I said, I believe, Smithsonian has probably been complacent in a lot of cover-up and destruction of antiquities and evidences for other than what is presented as mainstream. There's lots of accounts, like I say, and also something I find fascinating. What I want to talk to Mike about is there's a story told about these people from the Book of Mormon. I haven't read the Book of Mormon. I tried, but there was all that art for Where Are You, or no, what was it? Peradventure and stuff like that. It just kind of slowed down my reading, but I did read a little bit, and it looks like a pretty interesting account. Either whether it be fiction or I'm not going to here to debate the ideology of Mormonism or their theology, but it seems to be a pretty interesting story. And Mike, would you tell us there's two races of people, and can you kind of sum up and tell us about life according to the Book of Mormon way back when in ancient America?
Well, I can tell you that it was a derivative piece of fiction, that he had access to a story that had supposed that the Native Americans were some of the missing 12 tribes of Israel. So Joseph Smith confabulated this fantastically boring book that was a fictional account of escapees. And so what's Nephi, I guess? It's a family. There's two brothers. Three. Nephi, Laman, and Lemuel.
This is back in...
Nephi is the shining star.
Yeah, this is back in Israel.
2,000 years. This is in King David's time or somewhere about then. And so they flee across the ocean in these surprisingly like submarine boats guided by a special light, illuminated stone. And they have a compass called the Liahona. And then they landed in South America somewhere, and then they tramped and hauled all over the country and ended up in Iowa, and eventually the black-skinned or darker-skinned brothers race. See, it's a long story, and the descendants of Nephi, called the Nephites, eventually all succumb to the warring descendants of his brother, the Lamanites. And so the remnant of the family that were self-exiled from the Holy Land are the Native American Indians right now. And of course it's all hogwash, but it's Mark Twain called it chloroform in print. And it's a wonderful, wishful story. It really is. Because Joseph Smith would have been a great, he was a wonderful man. He ran for president, and he was privy to information, as was Brigham Young. They were Masons, both of them, 32nd or 33rd degree Masons. When Joseph Smith was killed, he had his Mason's ring on. So the story about Mormonism and American Mormonism and the colonization of the West is really a lot more complicated than just what people are told.
It seems to me that this story must have had some basis in some type of historical evidence for, them to have come up with the idea that these civilizations existed way back then. And it's quite evident by, mounds all across the Americas that there was some, great cities, and, that maintained a huge population of people.
Well, yes, so I completely agree with you there. I mean, there is evidence that America has been visited by the Vikings at L'Anse Meadows, and, I can't remember, like Hudson Bay up there somewhere, and that the stone, the Kensington stone, as you mentioned, they found like 5th century AD Chinese pottery on the Aleutian Islands. They found Peru. The names in Peru are all Chinese if you look at them. So yeah, there's lots of evidence, and yes, they have a vested interest in the current narrative of the settlement of America and how they were all savages, and we shouldn't have any collective guilt about destroying these cultures. But the truth is the entire West was Spanish territory all the way into Utah, and there's a Spanish fort up in Idaho long before the Mormons got here, so they were used as a religious shock troop.
Yeah, I've seen some hieroglyphs of the Meadow Valley Wash north of Vegas here showing the Spaniards with their helmets on. And some
cool, you actually saw those. Yeah, that's neat. They made those. And they the Spanish came all the way up and mined gold and enslaved the Native Americans all the way in the 1500s, long before there were people, before Jamestown.
Okay, I've transferred back. I hung up on myself. I went outside. That's pretty cool. Now, as I settle back in, pop in the chat. Hi to everybody in there. That's all on. Any questions or comments or calls, you're welcome to call in at 718-717-8296. So, yeah. Where was I at? Somewhere.
Evidence. You were looking at the actual evidence.
And
yes. There is evidence from all the Native American oral traditions that their ancestors, that they had visitors. All of them have said they were visitors, the people from over the oceans. And that's not where they came from. They have different origination myths. So I say, why not believe them?
Yeah, the Aztec legends of Quetzalcoatl, if I pronounce that right, he came from in a big boat anyways, and that's what, when Cortez came, they confused him with the returning god, and man, he just, with a few men, a handful of men that malaria ridden, they just came in and conquered, man. They used religion to seems like religion is a good way to deal with people, no matter what your religion. I can't figure that everybody's got it figured out, or anybody has.
Well, it's all the same principle. They're gonna save you, and even if they have to kill you to save you, they're gonna do it.
Well,
and it's not just religion; it's always the people who have a better idea how you're gonna live your life. So they're not gonna let you choose, and it's religion, or it's politics, whichever the control structure, and that's what they used back then. They used the fathers and the army, and it was a miserable time. They don't even talk about it. American history does not talk about that period of time when they literally enslaved. They chopped their feet off and their hands off. They cut their noses and faces off. And these are the Christians that settled America.
The good guys, right?
Scalping didn't come from. Native Americans didn't always scalp. Heck, the French scalped. They paid money for it. It was a trade in proving that you killed the other guy. And the founding, the origination of America is a myth structure that has been built up carefully over time with your approved books and your approved stories, and they just conveniently hide all the terrible, horrible things that were done in order to extract the resources from this brand new Atlantis, this country that they came over to conquer. And they knew it was here. They'd known, the esoteric knowledge has always been that there is Atlantis, the new Atlantis. It has been known, yes.
Yeah, there's some pretty incredible structures offshore, off the East Coast down south, I believe somewhere ranging around Florida, the Bahamas, that way. Incredible stone structure underneath paved roads. There were some pretty big civilizations going on, and this is something that has almost never even comes up as far as your general education pursuits. And it's used for racism too,
culture. There's been several extinction events. Some of those pyramids, in order to be like the Japanese one that's off their coast, and the Bimini one that you're talking about, these underwater structures, the Bimini Highway, those had to have been done previous to 12,000 years ago, and those are monumental constructions. So regardless of whether or not we know exactly what our history is, we do know that it is actively being hidden from us and lied about. And sometimes, as you mentioned before in the Smithsonian case, it is being destroyed or was destroyed.
What's
silent.
What's a shame too is people have vested interest, like in putting forth some theories too, or claims such as here in Nevada, the Crystal Cave, and another one over nearby, where and even there was an account given by the Paiutes some 5 generations back, and I think that was in the 1800s. This account was given. So there was a race of red-headed people that were exterminated there. They found some skeletons, and the Paiutes are claiming them as ancestors, but and then that stops any type of examination by people as far as extracting enough stuff for DNA other things where, go ahead.
I was going to say, there is that skull. There is a giant red-headed skull, or was, in the Winnemucca Museum. Right there. Just go up and look at it, where it is. There's some giant, some larger stone tools. There's also stone mining tools that suggest some of the things, who knows how long this history is, because either, like I said, actively covered up. There's, you've heard of the Hooked X, correct? It's I can't remember, there's a documentary, and it's about the earlier incursion of the Nordics all the way down into the Wisconsin, or maybe the Ohio River Valley, where they found that. And the script proves it, because all the way back then they had a particular rune that was hooked that fell out of common use and then out of use altogether. And so if it cannot be that what you're talking about, the Kensington Stone cannot be a fake, because nobody knew the script from that supposed time. Nobody could have faked it, so it has to be real. So yes, this continent has been explored many times, and they are lying about it. And who knows how many times, and by who.
Yeah, but much of the time. There's a cave in Arizona. They found Roman artifacts and a sword. And very interesting about that. It had inscribed into a dinosaur. So I'm not sure of all these timelines. It's all come about in nefarious means, how they come up with all these dates and stuff. So I'm not going to try to put any dates on anything, but I think there's a lot that happened in more recent history than what's supposed. I think the mastodons probably survived into the 1700s, probably, although they were probably a small population at that time. But there's accounts too from ancient tales and legends and stuff of some of these animals that were hunted. Great coup to have taken such animals, even the dirt-toothed tiger and so forth. Very interesting history we have. Oh yeah,
dragons all over Asia and Europe, all the way up to 900 or 1,000 or so.
Yeah, there's one book.
Would they tell you the truth? Would they?
No. Some people are trying to put out truth, and have been for a great many years. We're not nothing new today in our alternative media. People have been, although much smaller, have been trying to speak the truth for a long time, or truth as they see it, or evidence that they have that would give another truth than what's given to us. Sad state of affairs sometimes when you think about, we're so easily hurted. We've kind of been herded up like cattle, or goyim. That's something chat might call it.
Yeah, exactly like. Or because we are. I mean, honestly, we have been given just enough knowledge to make us do what they would like us to do. And because we're economic units, you believe you're an individual free person that is acting out of free will, but they understand that they have trained us all to respond to pay rent and to pay taxes and to go shopping and to do the holidays, and you have to see the newest blockbuster, and if you don't get your latte from Starbucks or whatever, and I'm not talking about everybody, and you know that. I'm speaking in general, the way they have manipulated the human mind to their ends by giving us limited or wrong information.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So just don't be that way, right? Don't be that guy.
Don't do that. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I remember Jimmy shared this earlier, a couple of months ago, probably, I think it was, about pterodactyls that were killed by Confederate soldiers in Georgia. There's accounts back in the, I think, 1500s, some chronicle from Great Britain that, they actually flew back and forth, kind of like bats, at dawn and dusk. Maybe they were kind of like a bat creature. They got bats, a bat species. No, I'm thinking of a hummingbird in South America that have teeth. So Why can't a bat be a pterodactyl?
There's pterodactyls and pteranodons, and with the P, those are the flyers.
Yeah.
But, I think pterodactyl is the feathered one, and the pteranodons are the leather-winged ones.
There's a book called After the Flood, and it has lots of accounts of different, dragon legends throughout the European continents. The continent, to the different nations out through there. But Italy, there was a fine gentleman walking along with his walking stick and quickly dispatched a young serpent. And he struck it in the head. I remember that's kind of paraphrasing, but I remember reading that. That was funny. It was like a paper way back then.
I've had this argument before with people. They say there would be evidence, and I says, really? How many people do you know can pull up the evidence of a passenger pigeon? There's photographs. There's a stuffed one somewhere, but it could be a fake, right?
Oh, sure.
Because there's only one. Where are they? Where's the passenger pigeon? Prove they existed. Come on, man. Prove it.
Come on, right? Here's a list off of YouTube, just with a search of North American pyramids, and you have pyramids on the Mississippi River, the Chacoia State Park, North American pyramid located in Kentucky, the Mississippians, pyramids and hieroglyphs in America, D.C., secrets not taught in public schools, secrets, pyramids and mounds, Native America, Flower Mound in Texas between Dallas and Fort Worth was a mound. I guess they had a bunch of flowers growing on it. That's why they named it. Let's see. There's just a long list.
Well, the mound builders was an actual culture.
Right.
And it was all over. And they've actually, in many cultures in the Midwest, the Ohio River Valley, they built them. And they were completely different cultures, but there was the one culture where there were large people that were in the mounds. And those are the bones that the Smithsonian came and says, we'll take those, thank you very much.
Yes.
And happen to conveniently disappear them. Oh, we don't know where they are anymore. Yep.
Exactly.
Gone.
Yeah, that's way too bad. I got to think that there was probably some of these that are claimed to be a 50-foot giant. I think maybe that they've got some bone or something else. I don't think that. I could be wrong. I don't know. I went back there, but I find that a little hard to believe. 50-foot human.
I don't know, man. You've seen that 6-inch Atacama humanoid, and then you see the 30-foot giant side. I mean, the bone, the femur that would make the guy 30 feet tall, and you're like, wow, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
Could there be 6-inch people, and there could have there been, I mean, humanoids over 1 million years or two. Could the humanoid form? I mean, look how many lizard-type Tyrannosaurus rexes, that body form, the tail and the legs. It's basically that reptile, the terrible running lizard reptile with those smaller forelegs and the big fat chewing face. And maybe humans are about the same. We over 1 million years, we could be anything from 6 inches to 60 feet. Who knows?
Well,
but our genes are
well, exactly. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, when you're considering that, when generations down the line, you're actually losing information. You're devolving in a sense. You're not evolving because you have less and less information. Culminated here with people from different parts of the world coming together here, and so who knows the whole story? But we do know that Cristobal Columbus did not discover America in 1492 when he sailed the oceans blue.
Yeah, that's kind of the big lie that they need to keep perpetuating, because they've manufactured all the artificial evidence to support that thesis since it was started. And if they were to admit that they've been lying, the whole damn edifice collapses into a pile of smoldering garbage, right?
Uh-huh. Hey, Jose has to weigh in on this, and let me get him on in here. It's Jose. It acts like it's doing the same thing. If you, oh no, I got you. There it goes. Hello, Jose. Standing by. Click. Nope, he dropped off. Jose, your thing is always weird. I'm gonna click you again. No, it's doing that thing. Okay, I'm gonna keep clicking. Mike, talk to us some, and let me keep trying to get Jose in here.
That's all right. He's just going to talk about stuff like love and kindness and understanding and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he wants to talk about the invaders.
Oh, my Lamanite friend does. He's a Lamanite. He's not lame. He's a Lamanite.
A Lamanite.
Am I in?
Oh, there you are. Gotcha. All right.
I don't know this technology stuff. Hey, don't try to change the subject.
Ha, right?
Okay.
We'll change that next hour. This hour, I know that you have some good stuff to weigh in here.
I have heavy stuff to weigh in. Let me see. Who's the other guy talking here?
This is Mike in Salt Lake City. And okay. You know what? I before you take off, I want to say that just as we've had peoples from all over the world traversing the world, today borders and fences and walls are out of place. That we should still be able to go without a document to where we will in this world. And I hand it to you, Jose.
I agree. And I have to give credit to Mike, okay? Because Mike showed some critical thinking, and although you come across it as a little bit cynical, but Mike does fall short. My question is, when you're coming down to believing people who are talking about things that there's absolutely no way that it can be proven true or false, what does it really matter? Okay, now tonight's topic, Vincent, was close to my heart because you're talking about the, quote, discovery of America, unquote, which happens to be the land of my indigenous ancestors. Now, I'm Mexicano, which means really Mexicanos are descendants of the Mexica tribe. People who are of lesser knowledge called them Aztecs, right? The Mexica called themselves Mexicanos or Chicanos, which is what we used to call ourselves before the white government told us to start calling ourselves Hispanic and Latino, which does not apply. But my point being, my ancestors were here whenever whoever landed on this land claimed to discover it. Okay, and then we come across with all these theories that we have to put up with from European types or Asian types claiming that the people, my indigenous ancestors, came here from somewhere else. And I say, first of all, if there's any evidence that the people came to this land from other land, that same evidence supports the fact that the people came from this land to those other lands. Okay, now people have come up with the latest DNA testing saying that they can track DNA from Africa to Asia to Australia and then to the Philippines and then to what is now called the Americas. And I say, fine. If you can trace it that way, then you can also trace it in the reverse. Just because you are European, you get to write the history books, and you get to claim that the bloodline comes from Africa and so on and so forth, and then here. Why can't it support it the other way around? But more importantly, I say, what does it matter? It's funny because that's the name of this show, right? What does it matter? The only people that are trying to say that they know where life began, or they know who landed on America first, hello, we were here already, are the people who gain some sort of power by making their claim. Now, they may not become presidents of countries or bankers, but they certainly do get paid for making these claims by people who want to support this claim. Now, the worst part of it is, and I keep saying this, Vince, I love you. You were reading reports as if they were fact. A lot of both of you kept saying the word proof. There is never proof. There is only a demonstration. The evidence that we have so far may demonstrate that this is probably what happened, but we may get more evidence tomorrow to debunk that probability. Now, I know I'm coming across a little bit excited, but like I said, my ancestors have been sitting here watching everybody else fight over who invaded our land first. Does it
exactly?
Does it really matter?
That's the whole point. We're all here now. We're here together, and that's where we need to be working on. Because none of us are pure race, and anybody that thinks that they're some pure race, I think, is mistaken.
That's what I said. The Native American origin stories that I have read, even I didn't read them in their language, obviously, all say that there have been visitors. Not one of them say that they originated overseas. Not one of them. They all say that they came. I think I mentioned that before, that their families came from this land here. I mean, right here. They didn't walk. None of them say that. No, they came out of the ground, or they came out of the white buffalo calf woman brings this sacred bundle. I mean, but they're always here with the land. All right. Of them. I don't think that they believe that that they have any European origins. I don't believe that they do either.
No, I would say that was a very small amount that was either absorbed into the peoples that were here. And I believe that they were mostly Asian that came over purposefully to populate this land. There could have been castaways, that naturally would have drifted to the actually Southern California, where the current ends right there. They would have drifted from Japan all the way around the Aleutians and down the coast, and had to swim ashore maybe. But they're here. But
they were invaders. There's been natives here as far back as they can dig a pit, 20,000 years, 30,000 years. But there have been enough ice ages and mini ice ages that most evidence has been destroyed, and volcanism and the raising of the Isthmus of Panama. We're talking, millions of years of history, not thousands of years of history.
Right, and I could tit for tat. We can stay here all night, and any evidence you come up with to support that this land was, quote unquote, populated by, I can say, well, that same theory can hold the other way around. If you think the Asians came and landed on California to populate this land, as if this land was some kind of emptiness until Europeans or Asians discovered it, quote unquote, again, then that same evidence supports that people could have gotten on a boat and sailed that way, or rowed that way, or just drifted on a log that way for
well, that's what Thor Heyerdahl did. He went from the coast of South America to Polynesia on that current. So he was proving that point that you're making.
Yeah.
And that's true. The origin of, modern man, it's all, like you said, written by white people, so every study that is ever done is oriented towards proving that fact, that pre-assumption. Yes.
Exactly.
You're not going to get an argument out of me on that.
And I think that people have come and gone in every direction from all parts of the world. And at one point in time, every part of the earth was uninhabited by a human being or a group of human beings. So at some point in time, somebody came from somewhere to where they are, where their ancestors are. And it's been all a constant migration of people throughout history, I'd say. I think it's our basic human instinct to, well, I don't know, it's mine to move about, has been my whole life. Just maybe some people have, different makeups. Go ahead, Jose.
Now that's if you believe
our imagination is limited by our ability to think in short term time. We don't have the ability to think and understand 20, 50, 80, 100, 200,000 years ago.
And of course, we're limited. Our imagination is also limited to what we have been exposed to. And again, the main thing is, this is fun to pop a top on a beer or a bottle of wine and sit around and contemplate. But the bottom line is, what does it matter? What does it matter? When I hear, pardon the way I'm going to sound, but when I hear white people arguing about who invaded my ancestors' lands first, I die a little inside, because it's like, okay, who raped my great-great-great-great-grandmother? Was it Asians or was it Europeans? And granted, I will grant you that the Europeans that came over, a little over 500 years ago were the worst examples of Europeans possible, because they did not come over for freedom of religion like we're told in school. They came over for free land. They came over for gold and silver and other natural resources. They did not
the shit right out of you, didn't they?
Yeah, I think I was about to say the Mexica movement, which is a political movement out there to bring pride and power back to the Mexicanos or the Mexicanos, has a term Nicantlaca, which means we were here. Nicantlaca. We were here, regardless of which one of y'all landed here first. We were already here, and so all the arguments are pointless, except to admit guilt. Now, one of my first things when the cycle comes around and the indigenous culture, which we now call Mexica or Mexicanos, gets power, the first thing we're going to do is sue all y'all's asses to get our gold, silver, and natural resources back. Okay, how do you like that? So which one of you landed here first?
Where you going to get it from?
Go after colonial Spain first, man. They got most of it.
Well, my ancestors, I'm 11th generation, came to Virginia in the later part of the 1600s. And being where my ancestry comes in from through Tennessee, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, I've naturally got native blood, and it's, I don't have no records to show it, but, it's always been said with Cherokee. And any Indian in Oklahoma will tell you all the white boys in Oklahoma are part Cherokee.
Well, and you probably are. But again, I want to stress again, the only people who try to argue this are the ones who want power or division. They're trying to divide the people. Because
they
biggest
want privacy on the land. They want first order. They want to be able to tell you that they were here first, so you're going to do what they say. Hey,
exactly.
Everybody wants the right of return. I want the right of return. I'm going to go over and take over Norway. Right?
There you go.
We write some of that in for every indigenous population. I mean, we got the supposed Khazarians. They got their property back in the 40s. How about everybody do that? I think that's a good idea.
And you see, and the biggest issue that I have is, okay, I keep saying, that my indigenous ancestors, remember, I also have ancestors from España. I don't even associate with those guys. Those were the rapists in my family, right? But I say, okay, This was the land of my indigenous ancestors. I am a descendant of those indigenous ancestors. But I'm not asking y'all to leave. I'm just asking y'all to stop telling me to leave.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That go home gringo, right?
But we're not saying that. We may say go home bigot, go home white supremacist, but because those are the people that are telling us that we can't be here, like you mentioned earlier. They're telling us we can't cross the border. Well, guess what? We didn't establish that border. My ancestors have been crossing this land for thousands and thousands of years before whichever one of y'all landed here and drew that imaginary line.
From the words from the movie Machete is, we didn't cross the border crossed us.
There you go. I have to watch that.
I wouldn't use Machete as an example, though, really. But the Ute Indian tribe, all the way up here in Utah and in Colorado, share the same, I guess it's the linguistic base as the Aztecs. It's called the Uto-Aztec. So if anybody tells you that that's not true, well, sorry, the Ute language is based on the Aztec language.
Right. And the word Aztec, by the way, I've said it before. When you guys, let me see, Mike, do you ever go to a football game?
No.
Have you ever gone
not
to a
ever.
football? Never in your life?
Yeah, I did when I was younger, yeah.
Okay, so you're on a team and you play, you're playing a game and your team wins at the end of the game. You guys all raise your hands up and say, we're number one. We're number one. Or we won. We're the winners. Or we're victorious. Okay. The word Aztec means the same thing. So when the Españoles came over and fought a battle with the Aztecs and with the Mexica, and the Mexica beat these guys back, they rose up and said, we're Azteca, right? And so these guys went down in history as being Aztecs. And it's funny because it's one of my pet peeves.
Not a bad mistake.
It's one of my pet peeves that it's been over 500 years. We know now that Columbus did not land in India. Can we please stop calling the people Indians already?
Yeah, I've been uncomfortable with that Indian or tribe for a great many years, and I like to refer to indigenous people as their particular nation. Well,
I would like to too, but it's pretty hard to do that. The nations aren't even where they were originally. There's Native Americans mixed up all over the place, and half Lakota Sioux, half Oglala Sioux, and I'm serious. So I figure I'm doing pretty good as a white guy. If I can figure out, to address them as, or to understand where they came from.
Yeah, hey.
On behalf of descendants of all indigenous tribes, Mike, I forgive you. Okay. Okay.
Well, I didn't say y'all look alike, did I? Oh, wait.
Oh, no. Yeah. I need to I want to address this, though, but, Gio, you said...
I just mentioned. Sorry.
But anyways, talking about, these lands supposedly sold or signed off in treaty by supposed leaders. Well, a lot of these people were even made up. I mean, there was a huge land grab. There's no doubt about that. And, but the history is written by the victor, as we've said.
Yeah.
The truth is so horrible, it'd be embarrassing if the average American were to read the history of the way they write treaties knowing they were going to break them. And they did it again and again and again and again. They were treaties signed at the point of a gun. You either sign this treaty or we're just going to eliminate you completely. And they were in untenable positions, outgunned. And I'm not taking any blame for what my ancestors did because I didn't do it. I'm not guilty of that. I would be guilty of being ignorant about my ancestors evil actions. And that would be the evil, is if I were to willingly say, ignore it. But on the other hand, I'm not going to say, well, we owe you this. No, I don't owe you anything, but I do owe the respect of knowing the truth of what happened and saying, man, that is really evil. And we do have to get along. Like you said, it doesn't really matter now because we can't change any of it. And then if we do, it's all revenge. And we can keep revenging each other until the 0 point is reached.
Well said, Mike. Well said.
Well. Here's a quick story for you guys to kind of mull over. Okay, there's a knock on the door. Lady opens the door of the house. There's a family staying outside and says, "Hello, we used to live in this house. We used to live in this house and own all this land. One day, your great grandfather came to us and had, no place to stay and no way to survive. So our great grandfather let him in. And then after a while, your great grandfather brought more of his relatives in to live in the house. And next thing I knew, your great grandfather enslaved our great grandfather and told us to get out of the house or become slaves. Well, we left the house because we didn't want to become slaves. And then your great grandfather killed our great grandfather and took over the house. Now we want the house back." So, at this
there
point,
you go. And every race and culture could say that same story. Every single one. Because, almost every one of them has been nomadic at some point.
well, probably, but we're talking about this land now. Now, we can say, yes, give us back the land. We're not saying that. All we're saying is stop telling us we cannot work on this land. That's it. Stop telling us to leave. This was our house. Okay? You are the guests. Okay? So you were more violent than we were. And now you took the house. That's fine. Stop telling us that we cannot live on the land. Anyway, before we get into any more deeper on this topic, because we kind of veered off on it, right? We're on my time.
Yeah, I'm going to hang up and make dinner because I know you have something prepared. But it was very good that we jumped in on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you calling in and what you had to weigh in for there, Jose, as well. And we're going to continue on some history lessons, and that's going to be in relationships and how they affect people and how to break out. And I did suggest a person listen in who had such a problem they were telling me in a message, and so I don't know if they'll be listening or not, but I'll look forward to it. I have stepped outside. I'm on the phone. Modern technology allows me to travel for a smoke. I don't even have to go all the way to the reservation for just Indian cigarettes.
Modern technology has also provided that we can tell the difference in your voice when you are out there smoking a cigarette on your cell phone and when you're sitting by your computer. And thanks a lot for switching it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I will have to listen. I'm going to mute up now and turn it over to you, Jose. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Thanks again for letting me sign in early so I can, clear my craw of all that stuff that was in there about who invaded this land first. Again, I say it doesn't matter. If we all treat each other with respect, what does it matter? And of course, the opinions expressed by me are my opinions based on my research, my observations, my client interactions, and my opinions are hardly to be blamed on the producers, sponsors, owners, or any others affiliated with this program. As usual, I invite your feedback and your comments, but keep your criticisms to yourself because I'm a sensitive guy. People out there in listener land tend to think that anyone who goes on air is an automatic celebrity. Well, I don't consider myself a celebrity, and everyone considers that celebrities are fair game to attack. You put yourself out in the public and you got to pay the price. Well, we're doing this for free, guys. So if you have, suggestions, you're always welcome to give them, but let's be nice about it, right? We're trying to provide a service for you people out there, and most of us are trying to do trying to be the change that we want to see in others. what did I say tonight's topic was going to be about? Oh yeah, it was going to be on relationship history. One of the first things I do in our workshop after we introduce ourselves, while we're introducing ourselves, is we report our relationship history, which is kind of tough for people, because if I pull any one of you and say, hey, what's your relationship history? The first thing you're going to say is like, huh? The hell are you talking about? Relationship history is what relationships have been like in your family of origin. That's your mother and father. And even more so if you can go back to your grandmother and grandfather on both sides of the family. Because we're going to talk a lot of statistics tonight. And I don't know if I told my statistics story, but I do invite everyone to do their own research and always take statistics with a grain of salt. I forget if I've given my statistics story, but it's kind of a long story, and I've already kind of etched in the took a big notch out of my hour here, and I'm glad that I have an hour, because this is a pretty big topic to discuss. If I have time left over, instead of handing it over to Vincent at the end of the show, I'll try to squeeze in my statistics story. Okay, but basically relationship history is kind of like a disease, a disease that can be handed down to family members, that can be inherited through a bloodline. But fortunately, you can do something about it, and we'll discuss that in the second half of the hour. I want to read some statistics here that I have on the website, and you can always look these up yourselves. I happen to like this one here, and I'm going to do a little bit of reading. This is direct from the United States Census Bureau, if you can believe them, But anyway, they have found that divorce rates for most age groups have been dropping since 1996. Well, I've mentioned to you guys that they've actually been dropping since the late 1970s and 1980. It's a steady drop since the 70s, but the Census Bureau only goes back to 1996. They were, of course, looking at specific divorce statistics for age and region of the United States, as well as gay and celebrity divorce and stuff like this, because I think even the Census Bureau knows that if you want to get people looking at your stuff, you got to provide some entertainment, and that's why they do the celebrity thing. Most people already know that a marriage is sort of a 50-50 proposition. So you have, a 50% chance of a successful marriage in the United States, and also a 50% chance of divorce. Now that's you individually. That's not even statistics. That's just natural. The flip of a coin. You have two sides to a coin. 50-50 chance that it's going to land on heads, 50-50 chance that it's going to land on tails. That's the same way when you get married, you have a 50-50 chance of divorce, or 50-50 chance of succeeding. Now, you have to define what a successful marriage is. Some marriages end in divorce. Some people say, to me, a divorce was a success in this relationship because it sucked. But that's another story for another show, right? Now, when you break down the numbers by marriages, 41% of first marriages, remember this is according to the U.S. Bureau of Census, or the Census Bureau. Why is it the U.S. Census Bureau and everything else is the Bureau of? Never mind. Anyway, according to the Census Bureau, 41% of first marriages end in divorce. 60% of second marriages end in divorce. 73% of third marriages end in divorce. Now, as far as this is kind of a silly graph that they provide here, which tells us that there's a difference between men and women getting divorced, which is logical when you think about it, because in ages that are up to 20 years old, women have a 27.6% 27.6% of women or married women get divorced, whereas 11.7% of men get divorced, right? And from 20 to 24, women and men are pretty even, although women are 36.6 and men are 38.8. But you see it's getting kind of closer. Now from ages 25 to 29, women are 16.4%, men are 23.3%. By the time we get to age 35 to 39, women 5.1%, men are 6.5%. If I know I'm throwing out a lot of numbers out there, and if you're not looking at them, they tend to make little sense. But basically what's happening is, the peak ages for divorced men and women are 20 to 24 years of age. And then the lowest points are after age 35. From then on, it pretty much gets lower, mostly because after people have been divorced, they tend to either not get married again or be very picky about who they choose to spend the rest of their lives with, right? An interesting statistic is that in the United States of America, there's one divorce every 13 seconds. That's 6,646 divorces per day. That's over 46,000 per week. The average length of a marriage that ends in divorce is 8 years, although that's the average. Usually the first marriage will last a little bit less, right? And we tend to do better later on because we get more particular about how, who we decide to spend. Most people wait an average of 3 years after divorce before they remarry. Now, something the Census Bureau does not record is that although people are waiting 3 years before they marry, they're still out there having sex. And they're also shacking up or cohabitating. And the average age for couples going through their first divorce is 30 years old, although these are just averages, right? 79.6% of custodial mothers receive support, while only 29.6% of custodial fathers receive support. I'll say that again. During divorce, where there's children involved, almost 80% of the mothers receive child support, whereas almost 30% of custodial fathers receive support. I know that, men are out there, get paid more than women and so on and so forth, but this is a really lopsided statistic here. It should be cause for alarm. Okay. 46.9% of custodial mothers totally default on support. 46.9. That's 47% just that are ordered to pay child support, just flake and don't pay. Okay? Whereas about 27% of non-custodial fathers who are ordered to pay child support flake. Now I know that, we're getting into the family thing and I promised you only a relationship history, meaning marriage, but these are important statistics because they play into the reasons for the numbers, okay? We get into same-sex statistics here. Do I even have to give you guys statistics for same-sex marriages? Suffice it to say that same-sex marriages, same-sex couples pretty much are the role models for how every marriage or couple should be. Okay? They're just tend to stick together. They're more loyal to each other. And I don't know why there's such an issue in the United States about allowing same-sex couples to marry. Okay? We go into, I'm going to skip the part of statistics because personally I view, the part about celebrities, that is, because personally I view anything that has to do with celebrities as gossip, and I refuse to spread gossip. unless we're studying it, of course. Okay, if your parents are happily married, this is good, getting into relationship history, your risk of divorce decreases by 14%. Now, that goes to those first statistics that I mentioned at the beginning. I'll go back. Let me repeat them real quick. Okay. First marriages have a 41% chance to end in divorce. Second marriages have a 60% chance to end in divorce. And third marriages have a 73% chance to end in divorce. Now, according to what I just said here, if your parents are happily married, your risk of divorce decreases by 14%. So that kind of is pretty good. Remember, this applies mostly to your first marriage. And let's hope if you do it right according to Western European cultural tradition or Christian tradition, you should get married once and till death do you part. I discussed that whole scenario in a previous show, and I think we're going to save repeating that for later. Okay, people who wait to marry until they're over the age of 25 are 24% less likely to get divorced. Now, they used the age 25. I happen to have studied, when I was in college, that the human brain reaches its peak or keeps growing until the age of 27. So until you guys are the age of 27, basically you're not even playing with a full deck of cards. How can you possibly win, right? So this is why the older you get, the wiser you get, especially relationship wise. Okay, living together, and this is an oxymoron, especially for you young people out there. Back when I was a teenager, we used to believe, hey, let's live together first to see if we can work out and then we'll get married. Well, I knew the statistic even when I was a teenager because I, did a lot of reading. As much as I hate reading, I still did a lot of reading. But if couples cohabitate or live together prior to getting married, they can increase the chance of getting divorced by as much as 40%. That's 40%. Who understands that? I have a theory. People who live together are kind of the kind of people who shy away from getting married. So when they do get married, they just want to get out. They just want to get away from it. Now, of course, I have an opinion about living together too. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Once you're living together, let's face it, you're married. You may not be legally married, but you are morally married. And that is basically, morals has to do with faith and has to do with spirituality. And if you guys are morally married, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, you're just not legally married. When you're legally married, that brings the government into it, and government has really no business in your bedroom. Okay, if you attend college, your risk of divorce decreases by 13%. So there's an incentive to be a professional student, right? Anyway, you don't have to pay off your student loans until you stop going to college. So if you die before you stop going to college, you win, right? There's a lot of divorces on divorce and children. I'm just going to mention a couple of them. The divorce rate among couples with children is 40% lower than couples without children. Now, in the old days, there was probably still going on today, where there was a married couple that was having relationship issues, and the woman decided to get pregnant to save her marriage. Well, statistics show that was the right thing to do, to save the marriage, is have a baby. Mostly people would stay together because of the children. In my generation, we said that was a mistake. But now that I'm a marriage and family counselor, I know that we can do it. You can do it. You can make your marriage work. Even if you think you're doing it just for the kids, the point is you can make your marriage work if you set your mind to it. Okay. 43% of children growing up in the United States of America today are being raised without their fathers. Now, that if these kids, if these boys are growing up without their fathers, who is their role model on how a husband or a father should be? More importantly, if these little girls are growing up without their father, who is their role model for how a husband or a father should be? Right? It's kind of a downward spiral. Even though the divorce rate has been dropping since the Bureau says 1996, I say 1980. The reason it's dropping is because less people are getting married. But, you folks out there got to bone up. If you're a dad, be a dad. Stay in the picture. Right? Anyway, I'm not supposed to give advice. But anyway, 75% of children with divorced parents are living with their mother. Unfortunately, all too often, I see this. Children, parents bring me their children and they say, my kid's broken, fix him or fix her. And I talk to the kid and I find out that the kid is just emulating the behavior of the parent. And all too often, the parent is very bitter because of a divorce. And it takes a couple or 3 years for a parent to get over the divorce. So it's very important for you divorced, especially you divorced mothers out there, because you're usually 75% the ones that stay with the kids. Realize that your behavior immediately after a divorce is going to be that child's role model for how a woman should be. And if your divorce happens while your child is in the formative years, that's under the age of 6, when children are developing their personality, that's the personality they're gonna be. They're gonna be little girls are gonna grow up thinking that all women are supposed to be bitter and cussing and crying all the time, or the little boys are going to think that that's how a woman should be. So he's going to end up getting married to a bitter, cussing, crying all the time type of woman, or maybe the boy will grow up and be a bitter, cussing, crying type of guy. So kind of keep that in mind. You want to be honest with your kids, but you do want to be discreet as far as your emotions when it comes to a divorce. Okay. Half of all American children, by the way, do witness the breakup of the parents' marriage. And of these, half of them will be at the right age to see the parents break up in a second marriage. And then there goes that snowball effect. There goes that spiral effect where divorce becomes a part of romance. This is what I've been saying. We're focusing on the wrong role models, right? As far as the states of the union are concerned, Oklahoma has the highest divorce rate at 13.45, whereas I think Alaska has Arkansas, hey, way to go, Vince, has the second highest. Alaska's divorce rate is the third highest. And let me see, I forget what it was. Who was the lowest divorce rate? I don't know, but in Alaska, Alaska has the third highest divorce rate in the nation. It is the highest divorce rate for women at 16.2. And, Northeast people get married less, so the divorce rates are lower, while the southern states are more likely to get married, and therefore they have the higher divorce rate. And you have to watch these statistics that I'm telling you. Remember, I trust this site that I found, and there's hundreds of more statistics. I can name more, but I've already spoken for 20 minutes on numbers altogether. And in entertainment, we know that if you name numbers, if you use a lot of numbers, you end up losing a lot of listeners, right? So I want to delve right in. As part of my workshop, I tell people, and I've said it before, but I tell you, don't hold me to the numbers. But I say, if you, okay, I did some research on it, and I just kind of, what's it called? I'm gonna paraphrase the numbers, right? And I say, if a couple is gonna get married, already they have a 50-50 chance of success. If one of the couples comes from a divorced family, that means his mother or father came divorced. Now I go into the grandparents too, because a lot of kids are very influenced by their grandparents. But it's not enough that kids come from if the parents were together, were those parents the original married couple, right? For example, my mother divorced my father while I was young, and then she married another man and stayed with that man still today. I think it's been, 40, maybe 50 years. But when my mother married my father, her first marriage, and when she left him after 25 years. To me, for all practical purposes, that was a successful marriage already, because there's people right now that will never be married 25 years total, much less to one man. Anyway, my mother, of course, is 85 years old, and she came from a completely different world. We are in a different world now. Consequently, that's my marriage history, see? Consequently, I've been divorced several times, and unfortunately, what I did by getting divorced, when my mother got divorced, she pretty much damned me to getting divorced, right? And when I got divorced, I damned my kids to getting divorced. This is why I'm hoping that my children listen to me now as opposed to do what I did back when they were growing up, right? Anyway, so a couple is getting married. If one of the couples has come from a divorced family, their chances go from 50-50 to like 60-40. If both of them come from divorced families, now their chances of having a successful marriage goes from 40% to something like 30% or 25%. If one of the two couples, if one of the couple has been divorced before, that goes from 25 to 30% to 20% now of having a successful marriage. If both of them have been previously divorced, now it goes down to like 15% chance of having a successful marriage. If one of them has had more than one divorce, 10%. If both of them have had more than one divorce, 5%. Do I need to go any further? Now, why are these statistics so important? Every time you get married, again, basically you start off with a 50-50% chance. But the problem is not the statistics. You don't have a higher chance of getting divorced again just because you were divorced before. What happens is your behavior continues to be the same, and therefore you're headed towards divorce. Well, I don't know if you guys can hear that. I got a lot of rumbling going on outside where the winter storm is coming in. I live in a mobile home, and the wind blows the top of the trailer. If you can hear it, just know that that's what's going on. I'm not in here doing any weird stuff. Well, I am. I'm on internet radio. It's pretty weird. Anyway, the number one question I like to ask people out there is, what are you going to do differently in this relationship to make sure this relationship works out better than your last relationship? Most of us that come through failed relationships like to blame the other person, right? When in reality, you may be right, but the reality is it takes two to tango and it takes two to trip, right? Even if the other person was a complete jerk and a complete moron and was completely wrong for you, you did pick that person, right? So it does take two to tango. Okay. What are you going to do? And the question is rhetorical, right? What are you going to do different in this relationship to ensure that this relationship is better than your last relationship? That's the big question. Now, the way to break the cycle is one, right? What's the most important part of correcting a shortcoming? Is realizing or admitting that you have shortcomings. Sometimes it takes time. You've heard me say before, you break up, you end the relationship, it takes time to heal, and it takes time to learn from it. Forget that whole business about falling off a horse and getting right back on it. Right? When it comes to relationships, unless you learn to ride, unless you learn to correct the mistakes you made that caused you to fall off that horse, getting back on that horse is only going to result in you falling off again and again and again. And the irony is when we're on that relationship horse, and you've fallen off and you get on, the next time you're going to fall off all the sooner. According to the statistics, people stay together longer with each time they get married again, but that's because they get more particular about who they pick to spend the rest of their lives with, even though they obviously make a mistake because they get divorced again. Now, this is the catch right here. You get on the horse, you fall off, take some time to rub your butt. Okay? The white horse. Get off of that. You're living in the past, man. That song is too old. Anyway, rub your butt and say, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Even if it was the horse's fault, right? Say, well, the horse kicked me off. Why did the horse kick me off? What did I do wrong? And instead of going into a neurotic guilt trip, just sort of, do a play-by-play and say, well, she said this, I said that, or he said this, I said that. Could I have rewound? Could I have rewound and restated that to save the relationship? Was it more important that I win every argument? Now I'm without a relationship. Do you want to live your life in a relationship, or do you want to live your life always winning arguments, right? When we're getting the very nature of relationships is emotional. Some people think they can get into relationships logically. But eventually, you've heard it. Some of you guys out there have even suggested it, that you want to have a sex-only relationship. Well, eventually, emotion gets involved on one part or the other. So it's kind of impossible to have a sex-only relationship unless you guys are really in tune with it. But I doubt that it's at all possible. I'm sure there, somebody out there who can claim it. But once you lose that sex-only relationship, you still go through a mourning process because you've just lost a relationship, and that's emotion, right? So when you fall off the horse, inspect yourself. Instead of blaming the other person, even if it's the other person's fault, the idea is you need to learn from what happened. And then you need to decide a plan of action of what you're going to do differently on the next relationship. Now it takes time. And that's the BITCH about it, right? It takes time. And I say a minimum of 2 years, because if you got involved in a relationship, you had some long-term plans, and somebody pulls the rug up from under you, it's tough. You need to get over. You need a lot of self-reflecting. You need to go through a lot of soul searching. You need to go through a lot of you need to go through a lot of evaluations. And then, especially if you are a woman and have children, oops, sorry about that. Especially if I'm Mexicano, so I'm talking with my hands, right? Anyway, and I hit the microphone. So especially if you're a woman, and statistically, if you're a woman and had children in your relationships, 75% chance that you're going to be the one stuck with the child, and that's a terrible way to say it, but from a life perspective, you're having to put up with this mourning process and raise a children. So you have to be nurturing to a child while mourning the loss of a relationship. And if you're a very bitter person, you're also putting up with the hatred, focusing on the hating of that other person, which you should probably drop anyway. But it's all part of the healing process, right? And people think, well, I'll give myself 6 months, it's been 6 months, and your friends will tell you, hey, it's been 6 months. It's time that you get back out and join the dating, world again. I say at least 2 years. Now, some people say, okay, 2 years, I'll wait 2 years and then get involved in another relationship. And then they start setting up relationships so that they can start committing in 2 years. Wrong. You have to just focus on yourself. And the trouble is, our society thinks that everyone needs a partner. Our society thinks that people who are without a partner are lonely men and lonely women. We have to stop pressuring other people. And this is why a lot of people don't believe in counseling. They don't believe in therapists, because all you need is a good friend. Well, this is what we have today in our society is a direct result of good friends, because good friends want you to go party with them. That way they'll have a partner to party with, right? Whereas a counselor wants you to heal, wants you to get in control of what's going on in your world, or at least what you can control. We don't tell you, hey, go ahead and go out and party, because I want to party with you. And the worst that a counselor or a therapist can do is prolong the therapeutic process, because we're getting paid, right? Now, personally, I am the anti-therapist, because I do my counseling for free. So no one can accuse me of wanting them to take their time to heal for the benefit of my own profits. So what are you going to say to that, right? When you get a counselor that's telling you need to take at least 2 years, you're welcome to come here and talk to me once a week. We'll go through the healing process, and in 2 years, you'll be, in at least 2 years, if you're ready, then if you feel you're ready, then you can move forward and start working on a relationship. And it's tough, because what we're doing when we say take a couple of years and heal yourself and get to know yourself, basically what we're saying is, I want you to have a good relationship by your own standards. And of course, remember what I said at the beginning of the show, define good relationships, right? What is a good relationship? Because some of you guys out there think that, when you go to sleep at night with a good sex partner, a good relationship is you wake up alone, right? And that's fine. There's people out there. There's all kinds. But you have to define this with the partner that you're choosing, because you're messing up somebody else's relationship, not just for one night, for 2 years, right? Okay. The idea is, you're in a failed relationship. Now you have to decide what you want to be and work towards being that. And it has to be a practical what you want to be, right? You know, you coming out of a failed relationship. It's impractical for you to say, well, you know, I'm going to be a porn star, right? Well, if you have the body to be a porn star, well, okay. You know, but let's be practical. You can probably say something like, you know what, I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to focus on my independence. I'm going to, you know, get a job. I'm going to save some money. And this time next year, I'm going to be a little more self-sufficient so that I don't have to shack up with somebody just because I can't pay the rent or something to that extent. Okay, now I did mention a lot of statistics, and I wonder if I mentioned this statistics story before. I know I've told it on air before, but you do have to take statistics with a grain of salt, because here's a statistic story. Okay, when I was in the 6th grade, there was a basketball tournament in the school that I was attending, middle school that I was attending. And there were a coach initiated a basketball tournament, and the homeroom class was going to be the basketball team. And the rules were for joining the tournament was there had to be 7 boys on the roster, right? Because this was like 1972. You know, women didn't play sports back then because, you know, it was a man's world, right? Anyway, focus. So there had to be 7 boys in the roster. 6 boys had to show up to a game. And of course it was basketball, so 5 boys had to play. Well, in our homeroom class, we were only 7 boys. So, my childhood friend and chum, Johnny said, Jose, please sign up for the basketball team. You don't have to play. You don't even have to show up for the games. We just need to be able to have 7 boys on the roster. So I signed up. And, you know, there were 2 divisions. There were actually 2 buildings in our school of classrooms. There was Division A and Division B. We were Division A. And our team won Division A championship. We won 5 games and lost 4, and that made us division champions. So we were going to play the Division B champions, who had won 9 games and lost 0. They were a very good team. Well, lo and behold, came down for the championship game, time for the championship game, and one of our boys got sick, so he couldn't show up to the game. And Johnny said, hey, Jose, show up to the game. You don't even have to play. You just have to show up. You don't want us to forfeit the championship game, right? And I said, okay, let's go. So I went to the game, right? And our guys were getting our butts kicked. It was a cold, drizzly day. We were playing on asphalt outside on a basketball court that doubled as a tennis court, and it was miserable. We were losing bad. Our cheerleaders weren't even cheering anymore. They were crying. And one of our boys fell down and scraped his knee on the asphalt court. And the umpire said, "Hoop, boys got to go home." So guess what? Jose had to play. Johnny says, Jose, this is your man. Just watch him. You don't have to do anything. If you get the ball, just throw it to me. Right? Now, of course, what age was I? 6th grade? I think I was 12 years old, maybe 11 years old. And I was a short Mexicano. All I knew about basketball was what the coach had taught us so far, which pretty much was a layup and dribbling. That's all I could do. You know, it was a short Mexicano, and by the way, the baskets were still 10 feet high. What the hell do they think they're doing with a 10-foot high basket for middle school kids? I don't know. But anyway, the captain of the opposing team was Rolly. Rolly and I went to school with Johnny, you know, all our lives. Rolly and Johnny, by the way, were always the 2 team captains in elementary school. Whenever we picked teams to play whatever we were going to play, Rolly and Johnny were the 2 ones that were always picking, and Jose was always the last one to get picked. Hey, what can I say? I was intellectual, right? I taught myself how to play chess in the 1st grade. So I was more into being smart than I was into, you know, being in sports. Now, I was good at sports. I just was less interested in sports than I was in chess. Anyway, so Rolly Gomez was a premature baby, and he was really short. He's taller now as an adult, but in school he was really short, which meant he could dribble that basketball real low. By the way, he was really good in sports. His mom could whistle, stick her fingers between her lips and just whistle. She really supported him in sports. So anyway, Rolly could dribble the ball real low, and nobody could take the ball away from him. And he was doing this once under his goal, and everybody was trying to take the ball away from him. And of course, Johnny was the one who was watching Rolly. And I thought, Rolly, he's no big deal. I mean, we went to school together. He's shorter than I am. I'll bet you I can take the ball away from him. So in this temporary lapse that I had, I thought that I was a basketball player, and I tried to take the ball away from Rolly Gomez. He turned away from me. The ball hit Johnny's foot and bounced right into my hands. Now, if you recall, my instructions from Johnny were, if you get the ball, just throw it to me. But Johnny was now on the other side of Rolly, and if I were to throw the ball to Johnny, Rolly was going to get it. We were right under Rolly's goal, and this was 1972. We had very few special effects in movies back then. The Matrix was decades away from the making. But we did have slow motion, and I swear Johnny Farias pointed to our goal and said, "Go for the goal." That's "go for the gold" in slow motion, in case I failed to convey that over the radio. So I took off dribbling. Boom. Boom. Right? It seemed like I was going in slow motion. Everybody was chasing me after their initial shock of the fact that Jose had the ball. Well, I went to go do the only shot that I knew how to do in the sixth grade, and that was a layup. So I set myself up. By the time I jumped up to throw the ball in, I was already past the goal, so I had to literally spin myself around in midair, a la the Matrix, and throw the ball back towards the goal. And you know how in those basketball movies, the ball always kind of swirls around and bounces from edge to edge? Well, that was non-existent. It hit the backboard. It went boom, straight in. The crowd went wild, right? I went and fell back, but I was okay. Everybody came and patted my back for scoring. Even the guys from the other team, because they knew what a bad basketball player I was, right? Well, after that shot, my team was playing like a different team. We were motivated. We were passing better. We were throwing better. We were dribbling. We had possession of the ball more often. We were a better team because of that shot that I made, right? I guess my team figured if loser Jose can score against this team, anybody can. Right? Now, we lost that game. Right now, you think that I'm a hero. Thank you. What is that? Ben Jovi? Thank you. Yeah, I was a hero, man. Air Jose. I was a hero. Everybody wanted to feel my muscles. I was much thinner back then, too, by the way. Anyway, we lost that game 37-5. Right? Oh, shucks. I forgot to tell you. I told you the punchline before I told you the rest of the story. Because of that shot, I won. No, hold on. Let me restate this. Okay. Pretend that you didn't hear the last couple of minutes. Okay. Hey, I scored. Anyway, by the time I was done with that game, I had scored 40% of what my team had scored. And I had hit 100% of my attempts. Those are damn good statistics. As a matter of fact, because of that game, I won the most valuable player award for the entire tournament, right? Now, we lost that game 37-5. My team only scored 5 points, but 2 of those points I scored, and 2 is 40% of 5, right? that was the only shot I tried, and I made it. That was my only attempt, and I made it. And 1 out of 1 is 100%. So now, before I gave you the facts, everything I told you was the complete truth. I won the most valuable player ribbon. I scored 40%. I defy Michael Jordan or whoever's out there now playing hockey to do the same, right? Because I stopped doing sports a long time ago. And I scored 100% of my attempts. Awesome statistics. Those are awesome statistics. Everybody out there wants to feel my muscles, right? Everybody out there wants to have my baby and all kinds of stuff. But then when I go on and tell you how I got those statistics, right? Team only scored 5 points. 2 points is 40%. and I only made one shot, but one shot I made it. That's 100%. Now all of a sudden these statistics are a little bit different. And even though I love telling this story because it burned up 10 minutes of airtime, right? Because, the whole purpose of this story is when you are given statistics, especially having to do with relationships, your question that you should ask is, how did you get these statistics? Right? In the first place, I think it's impossible. It's impossible. The stuff that I read to you earlier, where I think I told you there is one divorce every, 4 seconds, I believe I said? There's one divorce every X amount of seconds. Now that's easy enough to figure, right? That's easy enough to figure, with the information. Okay, there's a divorce in the United States of America every 13 seconds. That's easy enough to figure. But how can they figure that 41% of first marriages can end in divorce? Especially when there are people like me. I've been arguably divorced 4 times. Boy, do I mess up the statistics, right? And what about couples who live together and never get legally married, but accumulate so much property that they have to get a legal divorce? Now, how do they figure that? And how do they figure people, when you get these statistics, you're getting only, legal marriage statistics. So how can they figure that? And then they can say that the divorce rate is let me see. I think the last time I checked, the divorce rate was not a divorce rate. It's a 3 out of 5 marriages will end in divorce. Okay, that's fine. 3 out of 5 marriages will end in divorce. How do they figure that? Do they figure, in one county, they had 5 weddings and 3 divorces. But it's not the same weddings. It's not the same marriages that ended in divorce, right? So do take statistics with a grain of salt. I've been Jose. Always a pleasure to be on your show, Vincent. Are you there? I usually talk until 2 minutes till the hour, but I wonder if 2 minutes.
You know what? I was talking and had not unmuted. Thanks, Jose. I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you joining in as well. Listeners, we all have different opinions, so take everything with a grain of salt and see what you can do to improve yourself. And I really appreciate the information that Jose brings. Stay tuned to UCY.TV. Double Cross is coming up, where Anthony Entiso, spokesman of the Jefferson Republic, will join Double Cross to discuss the Jefferson Republican issue that will go before voters in Siskiyou County, California. Thanks, Jaja. We're radioactive. Check her out all over the place in UCY. And we are radioactive. Appreciate everybody that joined in chat, even our troll that was dropped in. I don't know if you call him a troll. We appreciate your links that you dropped in. Thank you very much. Trolls are welcome at UCY. At least, peace, y'all.
Democrats, Republicans, your information's jumbling. The USA USA is crumbling. Y'all sit back, dumb as shit. The mass invasion, the home invasions, the CPS is coming to snatch your babies. These confiscations, the conversations, they're operating within the zones we trade in. We're in the matrix, now we're totally raided. They infiltrated, finally the devil gave in. If you can't hear me, then pump up the volume. Make Donald, Bin Laden, Osama, Obama, bring up something real, legalize marijuana. Everything on a bong hit is as blunt as Madonna. Radioactive, intergalactic, counterattacking, the main attraction. Make it happen.